Number 10. Unlike many legends whose origins have been lost in the mists of time, we know exactly when and where the story of Atlantis first appeared. This is a story about a city lost underwater. The story was first told in two of Plato's dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias, written about 330 BC. Number 9. According to the Greek philosopher Plato, Atlantis sank into the Atlantic Ocean after the gods sent fire and earthquakes to the island. The gods were angry at the people of Atlantis for becoming greedy and pursuing immoral things. Number 8. In the island of Atlantis translators spelling, original, which was greater than Africa and Asia, as Plato says in the Timaeus, in one day and night was overwhelmed beneath the sea in consequence of an extraordinary earthquake and inundation, and suddenly disappeared, becoming sea, not indeed navigable, but full of gulfs and eddies. Number 7. According to legend, Atlantis was an island in the Atlantic Ocean that sunk below the Atlantic Ocean west of the Straits of Gibraltar during an earthquake. Encyclopedia Britannica notes that Atlantis is also known as Atalantis and Atlanticad. Number 6. As of 2014, there is no definitive proof that the so-called lost city of Atlantis exists, without substantial evidence. Many believe that Atlantis is a myth created by the Greek philosopher Plato over 2,000 years ago. Number 5. The continent of Atlantis was first mentioned by Plato in his writings, but an exact location for the continent has never been established. Number 4. Though today Atlantis is often thought of as a peaceful utopia, the Atlantis that Plato described in his fable was very different. In his book Frauds, Myths and Mysteries, Science and Pseudoscience in Archaeology, McGraw-Hill. 2013, Professor of Archaeology Ken Feder summarizes the story. A technologically sophisticated but morally bankrupt evil empire Atlantis attempts world domination by force. Number 3. For most of the past 2 millennia, no one thought much about Atlantis. It was just what it appeared to be, a fictional place mentioned in a fable by the ancient Greek philosopher. The idea that Atlantis was an actual lost historical location is a very recent idea. First proposed by a writer named Ignatius Donnelly in 1881. He believed that most of the important accomplishments of the ancient world such as metallurgy, agriculture, religion and language must have come from Atlantis. Number 2. The Russian mystic Helena Petrovna Blavatsky and her partner Henry Steele Olcott founded their Theosophical Society in the 1872 with a philosophy that combined Western Romanticism and Eastern religious concepts. Number 1. There is no real indication that the so-called lost city of Atlantis actually ever existed, as the origins for the myth surrounding the fictional city can be traced back to the writings of the Greek philosopher Plato, who wrote about a continent called Atlantis in 360 BC. Although there is no real proof that Atlantis ever existed, there have been numerous reports of researchers or explorers supposedly finding the site of the lost city, and there are some scholars who believe that the city was real. For example, in 2011, Phillip Reeder, a professor at the University of South Florida, announced that he found what he believed to be the former site of Atlantis in Spain's Donana National Park.